So someone have asked me, why do Filipinas always asking for allowance? Well, first of all, not all Filipinas would ask for allowance. Second, the only reason why they would ask for allowance is they don't have a job. Third, the Filipinas who has a job would never dare to ask you for allowance because for them that is shameful because they know the value of money. And to those Filipinas who would dare to ask for allowance, they are the one who expect allowance from their boyfriends. You see, people, a lot of Filipinas in the Philippines love to be pampered and spoiled by their boyfriends because that's what a lot of Filipino men would do to their Filipina girlfriends. They spoil their girlfriends like crazy. I mean, it's not a bad thing, it's just that it's kind of part of the culture. I would say it's not always the case, but it's more likely. And that is why a lot of Filipinas who end up being with a foreigner, often they think that you have a lot of money. And that is why many of them would easily just demand for allowance. Because a lot of this Filipina would think it is your responsibility to pamper them or spoil them. And if you don't give them what they want, simple, they can easily just move on to the next guy who would give them allowance. But then again, I'm not saying that all Filipinas are like this because that's not true. Only the selective ones. And also, one of the reasons why you keep attracting those kind of ladies is because you seem to attract the same vibration as you. So if you're the kind of man or woman who has a lot of negative vibrations, you would end up attracting the same vibration as you do. And that is why a lot of men would end up complaining about Filipina rather than take responsibility and do something about it. And that's my take on it. I wonder why I never hear about Western men marrying wealthy Filipino ladies. Can someone please help me with that question? I'm going to answer you with your question, but I'm going to answer you based on my theory and opinion only. Well, first of all, I have seen a lot of Filipinos or Filipinas who are wealthy and who are actors and actresses actually got married to foreigner men or foreigner women. But my theory why a lot of wealthy Filipinos or Filipina don't like to marry Western men is because most of the time they prefer to marry their own kind, which is rich and rich only or wealthy and wealthy only. And part of it too is a lot of wealthy people from the Philippines often go to the Western world anytime they want because they can afford it. And most of the times they are aware of what is really going on here in the Western world and how men are here in the Western world. And since they are already wealthy and are able to access all the opportunities they want, so why would they want to marry a foreigner just for the sake of opportunities? So they would rather marry their own kind. That way they don't have to feel like, oh, what if this foreigner is just using me for my money or my wealth? Because they know that a lot of foreigners from the Western world who goes to the Philippines and marry a Filipina are not really wealthy in their country or in the Western world. And that is why a lot of Filipinas in the Philippines who are unfortunate, often they think that when they see a foreigner from America or Europe or any Western country, they think right away that those people or those men are rich because they automatically think, oh wow, he has $1, so it's my opportunity to have an opportunity. And that's the reason why a lot of Filipinos or a lot of Filipinas who end up being with a foreigner often think that they will become rich or they make a lot of money once they end up with a foreigner. So there's a lot of assumptions to it, and that's the reason why a lot of families often take advantage of their in-laws or their child who are in the Western world because they think that once you are in the Western world, you make a lot of money. And mind you, this is many Filipinos' mentality or mindset when it comes to marrying a foreigner. But really, they don't have any idea what the culture in the Western world and how the system works here. And a lot of wealthy people are aware of what is really going on in the Western world because a lot of them visited the country and they are aware, especially how the men here in the Western world are. But in a way, it's a win-win situation for the unfortunate Filipina who will marry a wealthy foreigner because a lot of men from the Western world, they know how to manipulate their little dollars when they go to the Philippines. In a way, they want to marry a traditional Filipina in the Philippines because most women in the Western world are not really traditional. It's more like in the Western world, women are strong and independent, and a lot of men don't really like that. But I also know that a lot of wealthy Filipinas are not really traditional because most of the time they have their own maids and they have someone do the work for them, so they don't really want to do anything. What if giving your Filipina wife's allowance? Is that normal? In my opinion and my own belief, giving your wife or partner allowance is completely normal. And I believe that's part of the relationship, give and take. And sometimes when your Filipino wife or partner would not ask you for allowance, often they understand your situation or they know what's going on with your life, and that's part of the reason why they don't ask for allowance. And if you're giving them allowance without them asking you, and for her, she would definitely appreciate you, even though she's not expecting it from you. But the concept of you thinking about her, you would only make her feel so important and would make her feel so valuable. Even giving her something little towards food or shopping, for her, that's something like, wow, my husband really loves me. But if your wife or partner would demand you, manipulate you, or guilt trip you, then that's a different story. Oh, if you don't buy me the latest iPhone or the most expensive purse, that means you don't love me. If a woman will only value you through manipulation and guilt trip tactics, then I would say run away. She will only value you based on material things that you can provide for her rather than the true values that you can offer to her. So for example, when I do a lot of things for my men, such as cleaning, cooking, laundry, and do house chores, often he would offer me money because he sees that I do things for him that he cannot do. And sometimes if I really need money or if I need to ask him some money, often I would approach him like, hey babe, can you give me some money because I need something and I cannot afford it? I would feel guilty and shy to ask him for money. I'm not used to demand money, and if you don't give me money, that means you don't love me. Part of the relationship is give and take. When my partner gives me emotional, mental, and physical support, then I would return it in a way that I would do things for him that he cannot do, and that's how we appreciate each other. I mean, back in the day, I used to be a manipulative person. I used to use a lot of guilt-tripping words in order for my partner to do the things I want. I mean, I was never the kind of person that I would demand for money and use guilt-tripping and manipulation. It was more like, I want to control the relationship, which later on in life, I realized that it was completely wrong. And learning about how relationship works and how you can apply it to your life to make or to have a better relationship or healthier relationship, it made me realize that that's how relationship supposed to work. How about foreigners who gives allowance to many girls? So, if a foreigners or a man is giving allowance to other girls, we're talking about girls here, I consider that man weak and insecure. It doesn't matter if he's a foreigner or not, he is weak and insecure. And the women who are involved with this man and knows that he's giving allowance to many girls are also considered weak and insecure. Yes, I said it right. You are also considered weak and insecure. When a man is using his money to keep as many women as he can as part of his options, is not a man. This type of man is considered weak because they know they have no value, and that is why they have to use their money to lure women, to lure weak women into their lives. And that is why it's called law of attraction. You attract who you are. And if you're a woman who allows this kind of man who will disrespect you and devalue you, that means you have a lot of insecurities and traumas in your life. And that is why I call this the law of attraction. If you're the kind of person that has a lot of traumas in your life, no self-respect and no self-worth, often you will attract the same mentality as you have. It doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. If you haven't healed from your trauma from your past life, you will never find a good relationship because you don't know who you are. That means you have no self-worth. When you have no self-worth, how can you expect someone to respect you and value you? And that is why my advice to you, sister, get to know who you are. You need to heal your trauma. You need to heal your insecurities. You need to start respecting yourself and value yourself. And most of all, you need to know your worth. After this video, I expect you to stop talking to that man, not even answering his phone calls or messages. And the best thing that you can do is block him completely. And there's a chance you might say, or you might think, but I need him in my life because he's financially supporting me. My advice to you, girl, start educating yourself. I'm not saying you need to go to school. I'm simply saying start learning, self-educating yourself. Instead of using your phones and would go on dating site to look for a man or looking for a man in general to expect for a financial stability, I would suggest to use their phone and educate yourself how to make yourself better. Men sending money to several girls are not weak. We American men chasing girls in the Philippines are constantly ghosted by girls, especially after sending money. The girls famously disappear. I think that you misunderstood what I was trying to say. The girl who asked me for advice is currently in a relationship with a man who are giving money to other women. And in my own personal opinion, I don't think it is wrong for the man who will give money to people, especially to women. And part of men's nature is to provide and support to women they love and care. And sometimes when a man or men have a lot of money, often they love sharing it to the people, especially women. And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes, or most of the time, men would support a woman or women financially to gain power and control so that the woman would remain dependent on the man. And sometimes men are often generous with their money because he cares about her nature and thinking about her well-being. And sometimes in certain culture, it is natural to provide financial support towards women or women. And some men or many men would use their money as part of transactional relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're not hurting anybody or yourself, who cares? In general, men are generous because part of their nature is to provide. Now, the difference from what I said on my previous video, when you are in a relationship with a woman, again, if you are already in a relationship with a woman, you should not make things complicated with her by giving allowance to other women that she doesn't know of. Not unless you're giving money to your mom, your sister, or the woman that you care for. And probably you're gonna say, yeah, that's what I did. I was giving money to other women because I care about them. And for me, there's nothing wrong with that if you're giving your money to the people who actually need financial support. And there's also a chance that your Filipina partner or partner in general could just be a jealous person. However, if you are already in a relationship with someone and if you are aware that it bothers her when you are giving money to other people, then I think it is time for you to stop to make her feel jealous and insecure. However, it really depends on the nature why you want to help other people, especially other women or women. It depends on the situation because your Filipina partner or your partner could be just a control freak and she might not want you to be kind to other people. Now, with your situation and other American men who got ghosted after sending Filipina girl money, I would say it is kind of your fault. I'm not trying to be mean here. Why would you give money to girls? You're talking about girls, not women or women. There's a reason why you call them girls because you are after girls, not a woman, not a lady. Girls. Why do you think girls? Girls ghosting men after they receive money because they are girls and girls just wanna have fun. So my question to you, Herman, why are you giving girls money? Why not to a lady? A lady, not girls. Because if I'm a girl and for some reason a foreigner man would give me money, that makes me so beautiful and it's gonna make me think, OMG, I can use my beauty to manipulate more men, more foreigner, more Americans. I'm sure you're a good person, Harman, but if you really want to find a true love, true woman who will never ghost you, do not give money. Wait till you meet her in person. Wait till you know she's legit and sincere. Don't just easily give your money and making her think that she should value and respect you after you give her money. No, 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 no. When a man offers me money right away, you're gonna make me think that your only value is money, not your true personality. But then again, if you're the kind of man who has a lot of money and who just enjoy giving your money to women, then there's nothing wrong with that. After all, you're making women happy, but do not break someone's heart. Because that's just mean, and you are not a man to me if ever that happens to me. To feel insecure is very human, isn't it? Yes, I agree with you. All humans or most humans have insecurities. However, there are some insecurities that we carry that might end up hurting ourselves or hurting other people. And insecurities are developed when the person has a lot of trauma. The more trauma you have, the more insecurities you have. I had a lot of traumas from my childhood that I developed from my childhood. And I developed a lot of insecurities due to traumas. And because of traumas and insecurities, I ended up hurting myself emotionally and mentally. And luckily, after struggling from mental and emotional pain, I was able to heal myself rather than victimizing myself. And unfortunately, a lot of people do not heal from their traumas and insecurities. And hence why a lot of people would victimize themselves. And when someone has a lot of trauma in their lives that they haven't healed, often people would use alcohol or other substances as part of temporary bandage. Often when men have a lot of traumas and insecurities, they are either addicted to sex, alcohol, and again, I mentioned other substances and much more that could potentially hurt themselves and other people. And that's the reason why I mentioned from my previous video that when a man has multiple women in his lives, that means he is full of trauma and full of insecurities, and that makes him weak. There's nothing wrong about having a lot of traumas, being insecure, and being weak as a person. And often when someone has a lot of traumas and insecurities, often you will develop a lot of mental issues or mental health that could lead to depression. And that could also lead to hurting yourself and other people. And if you don't heal from your traumas and your insecurities, then that's a big problem because it could ruin your life and it could ruin other people's life. So do you understand what I'm trying to say here? It is normal to have a trauma and insecurities. But if you don't heal your trauma and insecurities, you will develop a mental health, and that is not healthy. Are you kidding me? What about Filipinas give us allowance? Why? What do you have to offer in order for her to give you allowance? To be honest with you, Filipina has no problem giving you allowance only if you deserve it. I've seen or I've met many Filipinas who gives allowance to their partner. Why did they do that? Because their partner deserves it. Because as for me, I don't mind it if I give allowance to a man as long as he does all the things I want him to do, especially if I'm the one who's making more money. And yes, I've done it before. I used to be the breadwinner when it comes to the relationship. And yes, the man was lucky, obviously, because I was not only cooking for him, on top of that, I was giving him allowance. Can you imagine that? But that was a mistake. Never again. He didn't deserve it at all. And as far as I know, Filipina has no problem giving allowance to their partner. Only if she feels like you actually deserves it. And have you guys ever heard of a lot of Filipinas working overseas? Most of them or many of them have husbands or partner in the Philippines. Now, the husband or partner in the Philippines, who do you think give them allowance? Their boyfriends? Obviously, their Filipina partner who are working overseas. But most of the time, a lot of Filipino partner in the Philippines often take advantage of their partner who are working overseas. So what did they do? Sometimes they would use the money to cheat. They would use the money to gamble, to drink and get drunk, to buy a lot of cigarettes and do other things. And hence why there's a lot of single mom because the Filipina cannot take it anymore. Enough is enough. It is time to find a real man.